Hello everyone, welcome back to Assetto Corsa Competizione, and we have finally made it to the dance. If you saw my ACC video last week, you'll know that I've been putting in some practice for an endurance race, my first ever endurance race, and here we are on the grid for the RWB 9 Hours of Spa. I'm teaming up with two of my good friends from the SCB community, Jason Spooner and Ben Harrison of Labroca Sim Racing. Ben is in the cockpit for this first stint, but before we see the start of the race, let's just take a look at this incredible sight of more than 65 cars lined up at this iconic Belgian circuit. Now, our SCB community has entered a number of teams into this race, and many, like us, have never raced an endurance before, including the team that are lining up 40th on the grid right alongside us, Tommy Kosonen, Julian Garcia and Pavel Bogdan. We've put it 39th on the grid. There we are there, and you can see Ben Harrison switching on the headlights. That means that the 9 Hours of Spa is about to get going, and we're underway on the formation lap. Now, this is certainly a step into the unknown for all three of us. What is going to be waiting ahead of us over the next 9 hours and more than 200 laps of Spa? We've set no goals other than to try and finish this race. There's no targets in terms of position, and our game plan is simple. We're just going to try and stay out of trouble. If the driver behind is quicker than us, we're just going to let them through. It doesn't matter if they're a lap ahead or if they're a lap behind. Now, the lights have just gone green, so let's see what 65 cars coming through Eau Rouge looks like. Well, incredibly, the vast majority of the pack got through Eau Rouge safely. There were around half a dozen back markers coming to grief there, but thankfully we were far enough up the pack not to get involved in that. However, it certainly wasn't stress-free for us either. We're riding on board with Ben now as the lights go green. Now keep your eye on our rear view monitor. We take a massive hit from the car behind, and that in turn pushes us into the car in front. So two big contacts before we've even made it into Eau Rouge. Thankfully, Ben held his nerve, kept the car in a straight line and got it through safely. But yeah, that instant inspired the first of many 4-letter words in the voice comms over the next 9 hours. But we got through Eau Rouge in one piece, and that was one big achievement in itself, and we're even going to start gaining some positions here. The car on the inside at the end of the Kemmel Straight eased off a little earlier. He was happy to let us through, and now we'll just be happy to slot in behind this pack in front, settle down a little bit, find some rhythm. It's a 9-hour race, so it makes absolutely no sense to go hell for leather on lap 1. However, we also don't want to get complacent. We can't switch off for even a millisecond here because there are cars everywhere. We can see a Mercedes having a sniff in the rear view monitor as we come around No Name Corner. Ben was conscious that Merc was trying to push for a move down the outside, so we see Ben just move over to the inside, giving us a little bit more space, holding a tight line into Pujon. The goal here still is to stay as safe as possible, try and create as much space as we possibly can between us and the other cars. But once again, that Mercedes seems keen to get past, so he's going to make a move up the inside. We're not going to make it difficult for him. We give him all the room he needs to get through safely. And having passed us, he's looking to make another quick move to take another position. So that's 2 overtakes in 2 corners for the Mercedes. Meanwhile, we've left a gap open on the inside for another car to go through. Now we're too wide again, so we've got to stay out wide. That pushes us onto the curb when we get a little bit out of shape. Ben has to get off the gas just to stabilise the car. That allows 2 more drivers to come through. Things are getting really frantic towards the end of this first lap. The stress levels are rising. And it was around this point that I was thanking my lucky stars that it wasn't me doing this opening stint. Ben, though, held it together brilliantly. He kept his cool when there was mayhem all around him. And speaking of mayhem, we're approaching the chicane for the first time, and there are cars going off everywhere. 2 facing the wrong way on entry, several more on the infield, and a few more spinning on exit. Ben wisely takes the widest possible route to get out of that chicane, and we've actually gained several positions in one go there as we complete the first lap of our 9 hours of Spa. However, as we approach La Source, it looks like lap 2 is going to be equally as hectic because there are still cars everywhere jostling for position. We do have a little bit of breathing room, just a half a second of gap in front of us and behind us now. That is most welcome as we approach Eau Rouge. And as we get through there safely and begin the charge down the Kemmel Straight, we got an official alert on the voice comms from the race director saying that there'd been a big incident in Eau Rouge, so we were really lucky there. It must have happened right behind us. We'll go back and check out some replays in a minute, but for now, we're looking at gaining another position around the outside into Legume. Once again, really considered driving from Ben, giving that BMW as much space as he possibly could to make the pass safely. So yeah, we mentioned that we heard on voice comms that there was a big incident in Eau Rouge, and sadly it involved one of our fellow SCB teams. We're watching Derek Poon at the start of lap 2 now. He's in the SCB team with Nick Campbell and Gaviscon, but their race is going to have a disastrous start. Tearing through Eau Rouge, he's got no time to react to an incident in front of him and crash. That is a hellacious hit at the top of the hill, and sadly it resulted in a very long repair job in the pits. Riding on board with Derek now, you can see how unsighted he is. He doesn't get a glimpse until the very last minute. It's too late to react, and that's it. One very lengthy pit stop for one very beaten up McLaren. Back on board with Ben, we're approaching the end of lap 5 and we're in 33rd position. However, we're going to gain a couple more places here. Keep your eye on the two drivers in front, Costa and Tarantino. They're battling really closely, perhaps too closely, into the final chicane because they make contact, and although they don't spin out, they're almost at a standstill, and Ben nips up the inside. That's us up to 31st. And we continue to make decent progress over the next few laps. We're watching the cars a few positions ahead of us. Now keep your eye on that red and yellow Porsche. That's Derschmidt, and he's just going to get a tap from a car rejoining from a wide line. That sends him into the wall, and we can jump back on board with Ben again. He's already making a pass up the inside of Legend to gain another position, but we're going to work through this final chicane. We should see Derschmidt in the wall. There he is. So we've gained 2 positions there. We're up to 29th. We've jumped forward 12 laps now. This is lap 19. As you can see, the sun is rising at Spa, but we're concentrating on the battle in front of us. We're still in 29th, but the two drivers ahead, Sanders and Hawes, are having a right battle. That's Sanders going around the outside of Hawes to take 27th. So we've got Sanders 27th, Hawes 28th. We're close behind in 29th, approaching the chicane for the end of lap 19. We're about 3/4 of the way through Ben's first stint now, and the sunrise here at this chicane is making visibility a real issue. It's so tricky to get around there. But we're tearing down the start-finish straight to start lap 20. Ben's got around 5 laps of this stint left before he enters the pits and hands over the wheel to me for stint 2. But before that, he's got to deal with what's going on in front, and we're going to get a really big fright at Eau Rouge. Thankfully, we've just let Sanders and Hawes break away a bit, so there's a little bit of fresh air between us, and that is going to come in extremely valuable coming through Eau Rouge now, because watch the white car. He's going to lose control completely, hit the wall, slide back across the track. Ben thankfully reads it, runs out wide and avoids the chaos. But yeah, 20 laps in, we were just starting to feel comfortable, but this was a sharp reminder of how quickly things can go wrong. Hawes getting it all wrong through Eau Rouge. Thankfully, Ben anticipated it and took avoiding action. Fast forwarding now to the end of Ben's stint, you can see he's lying in 29th position. Both Costa and Tarantino were able to get back in front, but we're really happy with 29th place at the end of this first stint. And in he comes to the pits, and now it's D-Day for me. My first ever taste of endurance racing, and I'm not going to sugarcoat it, I was bricking it. Even something as simple as rejoining the Kemmel Straight from the pit lane was worrying me. I didn't want to get in anyone's way. You can see how far over to the right I was staying. Now, by the time I got out of the pits, I was in 41st position, and my strategy was simple, just to get out of everyone's way. Here we can see a faster guy behind, so I'm just going to pull over to the right, open up a big gap on the inside to let him through. But despite this strategy, we were still able to gain positions on track because of incidents ahead, like this one. Look, there's a car in the middle of the track, another one running on the grass, so that's 2 positions gained straight away. By lap 46, which is about 3/4 of the way into my stint, we'd made our way up to 30th, which I was delighted with, but our strategy hadn't changed. We were still getting out of the way of pretty much everyone who caught us up, letting these faster guys through. Here, once again, I'm taking a really wide line to open up a gap. I just didn't see the point in getting involved in any battles against guys who were faster than us. I didn't want to frustrate them. I didn't want to encourage them to make any aggressive moves, so I just stepped aside and let them through. Now, of course, that strategy did have its downside, and occasionally it cost us a position on track. Here we are on lap 49, and we've been caught by a bunch of front runners. Now, I'm going to let them by again, but somewhere in this pack is Taran in 31st. Keep your eye out for the all-white Porsche towards the back of this pack, but because I'm letting all these faster guys through, Taran is going to be opportunistic, and he's going to make a move as well. At this point, I'd have been looking in my rearview mirror, seeing that car right behind me, getting really close, and that undoubtedly would have rattled me a little bit, so I suspect we'll see me pull over here. Yeah, there we go. We pull over to the right of the circuit just to open up a gap to let this guy through, but the trouble is there's 3 more cars coming, and once I've opened up that gap, I can't close it again, and there goes Taran, the opportunistic Taran, taking our 30th position. But we certainly weren't worried about that. As I said at the start of the race, our strategy always was to let faster guys through, and if that meant occasionally losing 10 or 15 seconds and losing a position on track, in the grand scheme of things over 9 hours, it's certainly not a disaster. But here we are anyway at the end of my stint. I'm coming in 31st position. Stint 3 then, and I hand over to another endurance newbie, Jason Spooner, making his debut over such a long distance, and he was equally as nervous as I was when he came out to start his first lap. Now, of course, the 3 of us were in constant communication throughout this race on the voice comms, and we all agreed just to continue with our strategy of easing off and getting out the way whenever faster guys came up behind. And poor old Jason had a really stressful stint here. He was being bombarded by front runners, leaders, faster guys unlapping themselves, and it was a really, really stressful hour for Jason here. This is a prime example of what the stint was like. He's just let 2 fast guys through down the Kemmel Straight, but there's just no time to rest. We're not even out of this section, and there's 2 more guys coming around the outside. The first one there, and then the second one squeezing through. Yeah, Jason was really having to concentrate throughout this stint. It was really hard work. But despite being under such great pressure, Jason kept his cool, kept things steady, consolidated our position, and even managed to pick up a few positions when the opportunity arose. We worked our way up to 32nd, and we're watching the live action on lap 70 now. We're just going to see Jason pull over to the outside of the track to let another front runner through. However, that compromises his line and his corner speed, and that catches Nick Campbell out behind. Now, Nick's another member of our SCB crew, and he just clips the rear of our Ferrari there, sends us into a half spin. Jason did really well to rescue it, but unfortunately it allowed Costi to catch up and overtake us for that 32nd position. But once again, no worries at all there. We're still delighted with 33rd at this stage of the race as Jason comes back into the pits to hand back over to me. Now, I must admit that first stint did settle my nerves a little bit. The fact that I survived it and got through it unscathed, I felt a lot more confident coming out for stint 2, particularly so soon. I only had an hour's break between the first and second stint, so yeah, I was feeling good here. Now, we came out of the pits in 39th place, but the 2 cars in front, that's 37th and 38th, so there's a really close battle going on. Behind, you can see the McLaren just having a sniff up the inside. That's Derek Poon. That's another one of the SCB team. Now, he's a lap down after that big crash on the opening couple of laps, so I don't need to worry too much about him. I know Derek's a really safe driver, so I was feeling confident with Derek behind me. A great rear guard action, and we got a really good drive through Eau Rouge, and look, we're going to be able to take one of those positions straight away. This Ferrari was excellent through Eau Rouge, and the top speed down the Kemmel Straight was really giving us an advantage. We absolutely breezed by that guy, and then on the very next lap, the next guy in front, we were able to pull exactly the same move. Another really fast run through Eau Rouge. We're right on this guy's tail, pull out of the draft along the Kemmel Straight, and then take full advantage of the Ferrari's top speed to blast through, and that's 2 positions gained in 2 laps. And you can see the difference in my driving between stints 1 and 2. The first stint was all about self-preservation and staying out of trouble, but in this second stint, my confidence levels are soaring. I'm feeling more comfortable in the car. There's a bit more space on track, which allows us to be more proactive and push and even try to take positions on track. Which brings us to lap 87. This is what we're watching now, and we've caught up with the driver in 29th place, Digital. Yeah, we've worked our way up to 30th position, and over the previous few laps we were taking the best part of a second out of Digital every lap, so I was feeling confident that we could get around him here, but an opportunity presents itself straight away. He runs wide out of No Name Corner, and that invites us to make a move, a brave move up the inside into Pujon. Can we hold our nerve? Can we hold the inside line? Yes, we can, and we've got 29th place. But it's certainly not job done, because Digital's going to fight back, so we take the defensive line into this right-hander. We're going to make him go the long way around if he wants to take this position back. He thinks better of it, so we're okay. We're still holding on to 29th, but we're locked in a proper battle now. Approaching the end of lap 87 then, and we've been joined by another one of the front runners. So not only have we got to defend against Digital, we've also got the distraction of trying to let this leader through. But Digital's going to attack on the approach to the final chicane. He's going to make a move up the inside to take that 29th position back. We can't do anything about it, but we have got the inside line for the exit. However, there's contact as Digital tries to switch back. We make contact. We managed to get through okay, but yeah, that was a scary moment. We're starting lap 88 now, and you can see that that leader is coming down the inside, so we're going to give him a bit of space into La Source. Hopefully Digital won't dive through as well. We run it out really wide to let that green car up the inside of us. Is Digital going to make a move? Let's switch back to the cockpit as we begin the charge down the hill. There goes the front runner. I'm half expecting Digital to come through, and yes, he does, so we back off. We don't want to go too wide into Eau Rouge, so unfortunately all that hard work getting that 29th position has been undone, and look just how much ground we've lost just by easing off the gas into the entrance to Eau Rouge. We've lost about 2 or 3 seconds. However, we're certainly not going to worry about that. We're still in 30th place. It's still a really good show, and actually we're going to get the position back. Watch Digital ahead. He's going to lose control and spin out onto the grass, so we do get 29th position back after all. We're going to fast forward the live action a few laps now onto lap 95, and we've gained on a back marker the number 8 car, Iglesias. Now he runs really deep into the chicane here, but we resist the temptation to make a dive. We almost come into contact with him on exit there. Yeah, his slow speed really caught me out. We managed to avoid that, but yeah, we're going to have to be really careful here to get around him, because he does look a little bit on the ragged side. So if there's an opportunity on the inside into La Source, we'll take it, but there isn't. We keep it tight, but Iglesias keeps it fairly tight as well. He moves to the outside of the track. At first I thought he was going to let us through, but I think he just lost control again, because he's got right back on the gas. We're not close enough to make a move, and we certainly don't want to into Eau Rouge. But then disaster strikes. He hits the curb on the inside. He loses control, and we have a split second to choose which way to go. Thankfully we chose the correct option. We swerved to the left and missed him by inches. Yeah, this was another big warning of how quickly fortunes can change in endurance racing. Look how close we were to being taken out there. That was a close call. But we managed to regain our composure, and by the time we got to lap 98, the last lap of my second stint, we'd worked our way up to 26th position. We've got Pereira right behind us in 27th, but we're not going to give him the opportunity to make a pass, because that's it for my second stint. We're coming into the pits to hand over to Ben. So we're rejoining Ben's second stint about a third of the way through. We're on lap 109 and about 4.5 hours into this race, so pretty much the halfway point. We're sitting comfortably in 31st position, and that's 30th right ahead of us as we navigate our way around a back marker through the final chicane. Yeah, that's Antunes in front of us in 30th place. So Ben is in hot pursuit here, putting in some really good and consistent lap times, and we are closing on Antunes. So we're in a position now where we're going to be able to make an attempt at a pass. How close can we get? Well, the answer is very close, because Antunes lost the rear on the exit of La Source then. That's cost him a lot of exit speed. Ben's able to pull alongside, so we're too wide heading into Eau Rouge. Are we going to be brave enough to stay too wide? Yes, we are. But it takes so much concentration to get through there safely when you're too wide. Both drivers showing extreme caution. Antunes even ran out wide to avoid the danger. Ben kept applying the pressure on Antunes over the next few laps. By now we're in 28th and 29th position, and Ben was just waiting for that opportunity to pounce, and we finally got it. Switching back to the Team SCB cockpit, we can see how close we are to Antunes, and he's just going to run it in a little bit hot into this section. He's offline, and he's offline again when the rear starts to step out. That's going to send him into the gravel. He's going to lose all his power, and Ben is up to 28th position. So you may have noticed the clouds in the sky towards the end of Ben's stint there. We thought the rain was coming, track temperature was dropping, and it was getting cloudier with every lap. So we put Jason Spooner out for stint number 6. Jason is our wet weather expert. He's supremely confident on a slippery track. And we're also sitting really comfortably in 32nd here. There's a huge gap back to Huseman's in 33rd, so we're pretty comfortable here. And we're going to fast forward the live action to lap 127. As you can see from the sky, it's beginning to get blue again, so the rain never materialised. Instead, Jason was in pursuit of Pereira in 31st. Now, that's not Pereira ahead. That's a faster driver who's just lapped us. But Pereira is that car you can see further ahead again. However, keep your eye on him, because going into Buon, he's going to make a big mistake, lose the rear, and as he tries to correct it, the car's going to grip, spear back across the track and take out that front runner. Jason gets by without any incident. Yeah, we've ridden our luck a few times today with crashes in front of us, and again we got away with it here. Jason, anticipating the contact, just eases off, and that proves crucial. It gives him enough time just to get through safely. So Pereira's crash put us up to 30th, and by the end of the session, Jason found himself in 28th place with yet more consistent and steady driving. We're 6 hours into this 9-hour race now, and we're firmly inside the top 30, which is far beyond where we expected to be. So we're really encouraged at this point, and we hand over to Ben for stint 7. Now, the weather was fine. There was no rain at all. The sun was back out. Track temperatures were increasing. However, now we are on used tyres. We've used all of our tyre allocations, so we're basically hand-picking the tyres that are in the best possible condition for these final few stints. You'll have seen from the leaderboard that Ben's in 29th position, but he's got Pierce in 30th, breathing down his neck here. And to make things more complicated still, we've also got a front runner just behind Pierce. So Ben's keeping one eye on his rear view screen here. What is Pierce going to do? Is he going to move aside and let the fast guy through? Yes, he is. Look in the rear view monitor. So that gives us a little bit of breathing room over Pierce, but of course we're going to have to let this fast guy through as well. So Pierce will no doubt close right back in, and if we leave too big a gap, he might try and make an opportunistic dive. To try and stop that from happening, Ben takes the inside line, eases off to let the faster guy through, but yeah, there's Pierce on the outside. He is going for it, and there's contact, big contact that almost pushes Ben into the gravel. He manages to save it. But yeah, that was a really scary moment, and again, it's one of the downfalls of letting these faster guys through. It does invite the driver you're battling for position with to make the same lunge in the same gap. Here's Pierce going around the outside. There's first contact there, but that's the bigger contact, and it nudges Ben right offline. He manages to avoid going in the gravel though. And thankfully the rest of the stint was a lot quieter. Ben was able to consolidate that 30th position and bring it back to hand over the wheel to me for stint number 8. We're getting towards the business end of the race now. The field's a lot more spread out, so we actually only lost 2 positions while changing drivers in the pits. We're in 32nd. Much like Ben, I had to go for some used tyres, so I chose tyre set number 5. That was the tyre set I used in my stint earlier in the race. I was still feeling pretty confident when I ended that stint, so I had faith that the tyres were in good nick. And for the majority of the stint they were. Luckily we were in loads of space. I rarely had any challenges in this stint, which I was pretty relieved by, to be honest, because it allowed me to put some consistent lap times in. Normally we were lapping around the very high 221s or the low 222s, which on used tyres and with a full fuel tank I was quite happy with. However, by the end of the session the tyres were starting to let go, and this into Pouon was a warning. We lose the rear and get a big slide on. There was no grip at all. Now it doesn't look too bad on the replay, but believe me, at the time I was really panicking. We're almost 8 hours into this 9-hour race by this point, and all of a sudden I thought I was going to send our Ferrari into the barrier. Thankfully I didn't, but I did ease off for the last couple of laps of this stint, and as you can see we're letting drivers go past again. And so that brings us to lap 193, my final lap in this endurance race. Yeah, that's right, my work is done for the day. I'm just bringing it round one last time back to the pits to hand over to Ben for the final stint of the race. Now, when I took the car into the pits, we were lying in 30th position. Ben, coming out of the pits, has rejoined in 32nd. But crucially, because we've stayed out of trouble for the entirety of this race, we've managed to stick to a very strict pit strategy, on the hour, every hour. Now, the maximum driver stint time in this endurance is 67 minutes, so by pitting with an hour to go, we know that Ben is going to bring this home, but at least 2 of the 3 drivers directly in front of us will need to make another pit stop. McLeod in 30th and Julian Garcia in 29th are both going to run out of time before the end of this race, so they'll both be coming into the pits to change drivers. That means our hopes of a top 30 finish aren't over. We could still do this, and sure enough, McLeod in the Bentley is going to come into pit on lap 204. Now, McLeod was only about 35 seconds in front of us on track, so this is a guaranteed position. We're going to be up to 31st. However, when Julian Garcia came into the pits a couple of laps later, we weren't quite so sure. They were a good 2/3 of a lap in front of us, and it was really going to be touch and go whether their new driver, Pavel Bogdan, could come out of the pits and rejoin the race in front of us. We were watching our fellow SCB team intently just to see if Pavel would come out of the pits ahead of us. He's just exiting pit lane there, and look in the back. We were still coming down towards Eau Rouge, so yes, Pavel is going to get out in front of us, but how close are we going to get? Let's see. Look to the background. Where's our car? There it is. It's just coming around the corner now. So we're only about 2 or 3 seconds behind Pavel Bogdan, but look where Boggy is. He's buried in the middle of a bunch of front runners, so we now know that he's going to have to let these guys through, and that is going to allow Ben to close right in onto the tail of Bogdan. Now let's keep an eye on the Aston Martin. Is he going to step aside to let these faster cars through? Yes, he is. So that gives Ben the chance to close the gap. He's right behind Boggy now. And just like his teammates Julian Garcia and Tommy Cossenham, we know Boggy extremely well from our SCB races. He's an extremely popular member, and we know it's going to be a real battle to get around him. But we also know we're going to get a fair fight. Ben getting a slightly better exit out of No Name Corner there. He has a think about looking up the inside into Pouon, but we're just not quite close enough. Now we're going to jump forward to the end of the lap, and on voice comms we were discussing that our best opportunity to pass Boggy would be to do it soon, because he's only just come out of the pits. We know he's on used tyres, and we know that they won't be up to temperature yet, and just there into La Source you see Boggy drifting wide. Ben had a sniff up the inside, but he wasn't able to carry the speed. But when it comes to speed, we know our Ferrari is really strong out of Radalon and onto the Kemmel Straight, so that's our opportunity to pass, but we don't get that opportunity. Ben just gets a little bit too close to the rear of the Aston Martin, has to lift off the gas temporarily, and that costs us some momentum. We're not able to make the pass, but let's jump forward to the very next lap. Ben deliberately hangs back just a little bit further so we can get a full, powerful drive through Radalon, and now we are carrying the momentum. We're right on Boggy's tail. We've definitely got the speed. Boggy defends, so we go wide, and now it's a flat-out race to see who gets to this right-hander at the end of the Kemmel Straight first. It looks like we've got the edge, and we have. Ben makes the apex in front of the Aston Martin. And it seems crazy to think that we're battling side by side with the very same car that we lined up alongside on the grid some 8.5 hours and 210 laps ago. And that overtake has actually put us into 29th position, because remember Pierce from earlier in the race, he was in 27th, he pitted too, but he also had damage to repair, so it was an extra long pit stop. We gained that position too. You can see Pierce now down in 34th place. 29th position was exceeding even our wildest expectations before this race, but it's not over yet, because Lepage in 28th is really off the pace. Over the next few laps, Ben reeled him in, and this is the point where we got to within striking distance of Lepage. But we could only assume that he was carrying damage with how quickly we caught up to him, and this was the moment. Lap 219, Ben decides to make a move for it up the inside when Lepage doesn't defend, and it's a fairly routine pass up the inside. Just a little bit later on the brakes into the chicane, Lepage doesn't defend it. He knows he's got damage, he knows he's powerless to hold us off, and we're up into 28th with a little over 20 minutes of this 9-hour race to go. And that was how it ended for us. Now we're rejoining the action on the very last lap, and we're just a few corners from home. Consolidated that 28th position. Again, we never dreamt that we would finish this high, so all three of us absolutely ecstatic with how well this race has gone for our first ever endurance. Just entering the chicane for the very last time. 220 laps of Spa. It has been epic. So there we have it, as we see Ben take the checkered flag. That is the story of our first ever endurance adventure. I know the video's been a lot longer than what I normally post, so if you stuck with it through till the end, I thank you very much. I also want to extend my sincerest thanks to Jason and Ben. I couldn't have wished for better partners in this first endurance experience, and it was an absolute joy to spend the 9 hours on voice comps with them. And finally, while I'm in the mood for thanking people, I just want to thank everyone in the SCB community. The support and advice that us newbies got from the experienced endurance drivers, such as Christian Grotter, who we can see in the pink Porsche flashing Ben there, has been absolutely invaluable and really helped us tackle this huge challenge. And last but by no means least, thank you to you, the viewers, for watching the videos and supporting my channel. I really do appreciate it. Cheers.